Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zanu PF is on a warpath. The truth is, Zanu PF rigged the 2023 elections. SADC election observers, the AU election observers, and every other election observer of any merit confirmed that the 2023 elections were flawed and illegal. So the Zanu PF regime and Emmerson Mnangagwa are illegitimate. The opposition are going to demonstrate, to stage a public protest during this forthcoming SADC summit in 2 weeks' time. Of course, they are certain to hold placards reminding the SADC leaders that Mnangagwa is illegitimate. And this is at the heart of the regime desperation to make sure that the protest does not take place. It is getting jumpy. The SADC leaders already know that Zanu PF rigged the elections. They read that report. They know that the regime is illegitimate. It's just that Mnangagwa doesn't want the truth to be repeated. And hence, all these arrests, all this harassment, and all this police and army patrolling the city and trying desperately to make sure that no protests take place. Benjamin, we are on a warpathing.
Good day to everybody. I think it's evident now. The battle lines are drawn. I believe a clash is imminent unless one side backs down, which I don't see that happening. As evidence on the ground shows that it's all systems go. I would like to quote what you always say. Zanu PF, is a dictatorship, one that would rather burn, the country to the ground than, to just step aside and let the will of the people, prevail at the end of the day. And rightfully, as you said, Zanu PF rigged the 2023 elections. Zanu PF has been rigging all elections. Let me add to say that, SADC knows that. SADC has always given, recommendations to change the situation in Zimbabwe, especially when it comes to the voting, and unfortunately, we haven't. I feel we haven't, exhausted the right formal channels before we go out on a full-fledged war. But now it seems as if that is the route that we have decided to undertake, and it's a very dangerous route, one which is pretty scary. I don't know how this is going to work out. I really don't know.
Well, let's just have a look at the video of some of the army and police patrolling the streets of some of the cities in Zimbabwe.
Hari kutravesa kunetsa. Hari kupinda tonazo, atsoka runetsa. Pacho amuna. Ari kupewa nini? Apamiwa miwa. Panocho amu.
Yeah.
This is the reality. The regime is mobilizing for confrontation. And judging from past experience, they are hunting down all those who are suspected to be in any way involved with the protests and arresting them ahead of time, ahead of the summit. The tragedy is, as much as the regime doesn't want the protesters to protest, it is only by mobilizing and being so oppressive is actually bringing the spotlight on itself. Because the question is going to be asked, why is it that the regime does not want people to hold peaceful demonstrations? Why is it hunting them down and arresting them? It only helps to emphasize the problem I said before, that this regime is illegitimate and is desperate to keep a lead on that. And by so doing, it's actually making its illegitimacy even more pronounced. It is extremely jumpy, and there's no doubt that this really should also help to remind SADC leaders themselves that as long as you allow a political system in which it's inherently unstable, you will have to put up with the ongoing disruption in that regime. Zimbabwe is already in its 20th year of political and economic instability. That has seen millions of the Zimbabweans leaving the country, millions living in abject poverty, and the whole nation is like a beehive that has been shaken, and the bees are absolutely restless. Zimbabweans are not going to be silenced forever. I think they've been extremely patient. But the idea that this oppression can carry on forever is unthinkable. I do not think this is going to help at all. Even if they were to arrest all the ringleaders of this public demonstration, there will be more coming. Because as long as Zimbabwe remains a pariah state, we will never see an end of this.
I agree with you. We have a regime that is ruthless and very brutal. You know, I mean, it's evident already. We have at least, 100 activists that are already, in remand prison for crimes unknown, and some they do not even, they do not even exist. But this is just like, we said earlier, a regime that would rather burn everything to the ground than to see, justice or the will of the people, take place. And unfortunately, we have seen across the world how, dictators meet their downfall. This is the way, you know, civil unrest, demonstrations, destruction of properties, you know, and unfortunately, we have also a regime that is also adamant to say, we will show force and we will crack down on puppets. They call them puppets of the West, sponsored West sponsored individuals who want to promote violence in a peaceful country. That is what they call it. And yet we do realize that, Zanu PF doesn't have as much support as they show. They are one political party that transports people, from one meeting to the other, one rally to the other. So they really don't have much people that back them. The will of the people has been suppressed, even when it comes to voting. So now this is the path that I don't like this type of, this type of end. But if you, like you said, you cannot silence the people forever. People will fight back, and this is their way of showing their anger and their impatience and their frustration towards a regime that is not of the people, a regime that is not, people oriented, that is deluded from the truth. And these coming days will be very, very, critical, and hopefully, it won't be as bad as what is happening in other countries where people are dying in their hundreds. Like, for example, Bangladesh. We have another one in Kenya. It's sad. I really don't know what is happening with the world today.
My hope is that we are not going to see any more of the arrests, much less the regime resorting to brute force, where many people may be injured, were still killed. The scene we are seeing there happened on the 1st of August, soon after the 2018 elections, where soldiers were instructed to shoot to kill. We are hoping that that is not going to be repeated. Because I believe that if that was repeated, particularly before the SADC summit itself takes place, that will only increase the pressure on SADC leaders to seriously reconsider holding the SADC summit in Zimbabwe. SADC leaders cannot pretend they do not know that Mnangagwa rigged the 2023 elections. This is at the heart of it. He did, and per se, he is illegitimate. As much as SADC did not have the guts to deny him political legitimacy last year when they read through that report from their own election observer team. They have got also to accept that one of the consequences of failure to act is that they now have got to allow Mnangagwa to be the chairperson of the regional body, SADC, for a year. Here is somebody whom they know is illegitimate. And they are now allowing him to be chairperson of the regional body. If he kills people, run up to this summit or during his chairman as SADC chairperson, I think SADC leaders will know they cannot pretend that they are not partly to blame for it. They are. I seriously hope we are not going to have any bloodshed just because somebody who knows that they are illegitimate is desperate to pretend that he is legitimate, because that is what it is all about. People should be allowed to hold placards saying Mnangagwa is illegitimate because he is illegitimate. He knows that he is illegitimate. His insistence that he won the election is a farce, it's farcical. In fact, if anything at all, that should remind SADC leaders that they made a mistake in allowing him to remain as leader. Here is a short clip of him insisting that he is legitimate.
Vakatuka Zanu PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa, ukavona vachiti Zanu PF yakaipa, farai. You are doing correct things for your country. Homu takaita maelections edu, kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelection anafamba zvakanaka, ndezvavo.
Well, the truth is, it's not only Chamisa he is denigrating there. When he say varipo amwe vaitivo my election anaitwa zvakanaka ndezvavo. SADC and the AU said the same thing too. And to start demeaning everybody is totally unacceptable. And that is what this whole struggle is all about. This mobilization of the police, the army, to suppress the demonstrators, the protesters, is all about Mnangagwa desperately trying to pretend or to stop people reminding him and SADC leaders that he is illegitimate. Well, he is illegitimate.
It would be naive for us to say that there will not be bloodshed and there will not be people that will be injured if this demonstration is to take place. I mean, you can see with the army on the streets and with all those vehicles that we are seeing there, those are not peacekeeping, or vehicles one way. Those are, vehicles for war. So which means we are on a war path. So it would be naive for us to say people will not get hurt, people will not get killed. If this demonstration goes ahead, people will die. Let us be truthful on that. This is a clash of two people or two sides that that will stop at nothing to prove their point and to have their will done. Zanu PF, on the other hand, is saying we will crack down on West-sponsored individuals. And they've already started. I mean, we have a child that, a very small child under 1 year that is in remand prison with the mother. That just shows you how, ruthless a regime you're going up against. And, it will be merciless. And they have spoken out. Not only Mnangagwa has spoken up, his deputy has spoken out. Members of Zanu PF have spoken out that, we will crack down on people that are going to, what they term, cause disruptions and, disrupt our peace and stuff like that. So here we are on a war path. And it would be naive for us to say, in a war, nobody will die. For surely somebody will die and people will get hurt. This is evident with all the demonstrations and the clashes that are happening within Africa, within the world, Bangladesh, like I said earlier. And what like you were saying, what I feel, is the sad part is here is SADC that is coming, to our home, Zimbabwe, to give the chairmanship to somebody that is not only illegitimate, but that has created this type of environment. How then do you sit and have a meeting while there is, a war brewing in that same country? The moment you turn back and go, you are leaving people, in disarray, people that are on a war path. How does that work? Surely, SADC has to do something as an organization. I mean, you have to talk about it at least to say, it's not only dangerous for them presidents to come to Zimbabwe if there is going to be a full-fledged war. How then do you go, if, for example, if all hell breaks loose? You're stuck in Harare. So for their own safety, they should speak about it. But unfortunately, here we have SADC that is showing evidence that it is also spineless. It is also not condemning, this human rights abuse that is happening. So I must say, I feel SADC has let down the people of Zimbabwe as well, to some extent. They should be talking to Zanu PF to say, no. Demonstrations are part of the democratic process, and you claim to be democratic. Let's hear what the people have to say, or dialogue with the people first before we can even think of coming there. I think for their safety, they should be thinking of the same thing. And unfortunately, I think the battle lines are drawn, and it's just a wait and see game now. But it would be naive for us to say people will not die if this goes ahead. People will die. People will get hurt.
My view is that ever since South Africa's elections on the 29th of May, when ANC lost its absolute majority, Zanu PF has realized that they are now under enormous pressure. ANC had probed that regime for at least the last 20 years. But with ANC failing to win its absolute majority, that has changed. The pressure on Zanu PF to change is coming not only from internally, but from outside as well. I'll leave my final word to a South Africa leader telling exactly what Zanu PF do not want to hear.
Negotiable. My fellow South Africans, we have a crisis taking place across our border. For years, our government has watched while Zanu PF destroyed a country once capable of feeding much of Southern Africa. This crisis impacts our country deeply, and it is now time for a new approach. It is time for hard diplomacy. We must adopt the strongest and harshest policies against an oppressive government and not punish the people of Zimbabwe. This should start by freezing the assets of Zanu PF leaders in South Africa and banning them from entering our country until there's real reform in that beloved country.
Ben, you want to say your final word?
Yes, in closing, I'm not going to say much. I think, we just need to pray for our country also, such that, we don't see much damage. We don't see a lot of lives lost. It's a dark phase that we are in, and we are going to be entering, leading up to this whole demonstration clash with government. We really need to pray about it also. It's a difficult, for me it's very difficult. I don't like wars, but sometimes they are necessary. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Ben. I just wanted to say, to remark on the comment there on your screen that no one will die. I think there's no one who can guarantee that. This is a regime that has shed blood in the past and will not hesitate to shed blood again. I think the tragedy for Zimbabwe is we have allowed ourselves to get to this point where there has to be another form of struggle for the people to finally enjoy their fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. This is at the heart of our problem. 44 years of rigged elections is our problem. We are stuck with a regime that is corrupt and incompetent. That is the root cause of our problem. And unfortunately, the last 24 years, we did have the opportunity to end the dictatorship. And that opportunity was wasted. We need to address that problem. And I think I need to emphasize here the point I've emphasized in the past, that we are not likely to see Zanu PF implement any meaningful reforms between now and 2028. And if Zimbabweans participate in their millions in the 2028 elections on the back of another Chamisa lie that he has plugged for triggering loopholes, then SADC may find themselves in a situation where they have got to allow Zanu PF to remain in office. We cannot deny that at least one of the reasons why SADC did not act on the SADC election report of Dr. Nevas Mumba and his colleagues last year is because Zimbabweans, both Zanu PF supporters, who are mostly from the rural areas and whom we know they are coerced to participate, but also the opposition supporters who were coerced by no one other than being conned by Chamisa's lie that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, participated in their millions. Nearly 2 million Zimbabweans voted for Chamisa. SADC could not ignore that fact. And I think some people are forgetting that. We need to remember that, particularly coming 2028. If we participate again in another flawed election, we should not be surprised if SADC decides that they're not going to do anything again. I think a fight is on. I can understand why Zimbabweans, I believe Zimbabweans have every right to hold a peaceful protest. And in this particular case, if I was to be on that peaceful protest, I would not see anything wrong with anyone holding a placard that says Mnangagwa is illegitimate, because he is illegitimate. I have said it myself, and it should be said, because it is true, because it is a fact. And that is the root cause of our problem. And he keeps denying that he is illegitimate. He keeps insisting that the elections were free, fair, and credible. They were not. And this, to him, is the answer. Tanks rolling out on the street, water cannons to stop people speaking the truth. It's a pity that this cat and mouse game is going to continue. And until we have free, fair, and credible election, there will be no political stability in Zimbabwe. That is the truth. And worse still, there will be no economic recovery. This vision 2030 is just a lie. And I think many people are beginning to see it for themselves. We do not have to wait for 2028 to realize the vision 2030 was a lie. We can see it now. There is no meaningful development taking place. I don't know whether, Ben, you want to have a quick comment on the last comment there on the screen.
Oh yes, yeah, I also agree with him to say, prayer is needed. Prayer is important. It's what makes us, a human after all. We need to pray for the future of our own country as Zimbabweans. We are about to enter into another dark patch of our country, because we have seen this. We should not be naive to say there will not be bloodshed, no one will be killed, like the previous comment. We have a regime that is on a warpath and will burn everything if their will is not done. If people will not be silenced, they would rather burn everything to the ground. So we should never be naive on that part, that the reason why they brought out these is to intimidate and to show, the people of Zimbabwe, that they will do it if need be. And they have said it with their own mouth. So we should not be surprised that this would be a full-fledged war against the people of Zimbabwe, because it will be. So this is why I agree with our one of our our viewer to say prayer is needed. Prayer is very, very important, as we go through this.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you very much those of you who were able to join us today. Hope we'll be able to join us again tomorrow, the same time, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time. Thank you and good night.